Hey everybody, Tekking101 here. Okay, so if you remember correctly, last year around this time I made a video entitled The End of Bleach, Plot Points That Need Addressed. And essentially that video, it was a half an hour long video, and it was just a video of me basically analyzing every single thing that, every plot point in Bleach that we wanted to know about, every plot hole that I wanted to be resolved before the end of the series, and I just went off and just kind of analyzed the current arc as it was. So I thought it would be a good idea to do kind of like an updated version of that. And like I might be doing this like every year until Bleach ends, like just doing an update vid until like, okay, how far have we come since the last one, how many questions have been answered, and what new questions have arisen. So first, let me go through the questions that I brought up in the last video, because quite a sizable amount of them have been answered. Also, I find it weird that I'm wearing a law hat for a Bleach video. So yeah, just take that what you will. I have my combat pass here in case you want some counterbalance there. Alright, so the topics I discussed in the last video are Zanpakuto releases, which I'm still going to get into that. Isshin's past, which we did learn about the secrets of Isshin's past. He was captain of Squad 10. He was a member of the Shiba family. Also, some people have been a little bit confused as if that was the person that Kukaku was referring to when he said, you know, Uncle will be sad. So that would refer to... I don't know if she meant like Isshin was her literal uncle, or it's just a reference to her being in the same clan as him or something, but definitely there's of course a relation because they're both Shibas. But that was revealed. Ichigo's mother's past was also revealed. Kenpachi and Yachiru, that was revealed. Where is Kon? I find it funny in this, I asked where is Kon, and like a month after I made the video, Kon finally showed up after like a 2-3 year absence, so I like all this stuff that I call, totally. Character deaths, going to get more into that this video. Uryu and Ryukin, definitely going to get into that here. The 5 war powers, the Squad 101 and the Soul King. Remember, this video was made, I think after like chapter 503, 504, so it was like the Zero Squad haven't even shown up yet. Yamamoto's past, which we did find out about. So, yeah, those are all the things that I discussed last video that we actually got some establishment on since then. So Kubo's definitely been busy the past year. Okay, so let's get started right off the bat with Uryu and Ryukin, because that's the thing, that's the big topic that's been going on right now, because that's a big shocker in the last chapter, spoiler alert, that Yuha stated to the entire Sternritters en masse that Uryu was in fact the last Quincy survivor in this world. And I went into a huge tangent in the chapter stating that, you know, maybe the Sternritters are not really pure Quincy's or Quincy's at all. Maybe they're just an extension of Yuha in a sense. Maybe they're just a representation of Yuha returning to his power, because like I said, Yuha needed 999 years to regain his total power, his intelligence, and his form. He needed 9 years to regain his power. So the Sternritters and the entire army in general could just be the symbol of his power. It might not just be his own power, but, you know, his reign as a commander of an army. So that's maybe what the Sternritters are. Maybe the Sternritter, I mean, we've seen from the flashbacks when he was fighting against when, you know, Royd was fighting against Yamamoto, but he still had Yuha's memories, that 1,000 years ago he did have his own army. So maybe like the people we saw in Yuha's memories were like the previous Sternritter from like 1,000 years ago. So maybe he had like an army back then as well, and that's how that worked. Also, since the fact that Yuha is essentially the Christ figure, or like the creator of the Quincy's, maybe that's part of his power. Maybe he can just create, you know, pseudo-Quincy's or Quincy's himself. Just for the fact that he is, you know, the creator of the Quincy's to begin with. But the thing that really struck us was not the fact that Uryu was referred to as the last Quincy compared to the Sternritters. It's the fact that Uryu was told to be the last Quincy compared to his father, who, from what we've seen so far, and it's even been more driven into the fact since the flashback arc with Isshin and Misaki, that Ryukin is in fact a pure Quincy, you know, a pure Quincy, you know, like the same as Misaki, because the whole thing about Ryukin being like for like arranged marriage to Misaki was the fact that they were both very few of the pure Quincy's left in the world, and they could continue the bloodline. So I don't know if Yuha considers Ryukin to be unpure because he married and got with Katagiri. That could be certainly a reason. Maybe that's the reason he considers Uryu to be the only pure one left in the world, because Yuha is very ethnic-y, cleansy like that. It's just like, you know, you're pure, oh, you're not pure, therefore you're scum. Oh, you got with somebody that's unpure, you're scum. And we've never directly heard him say that, but essentially, given the fact of how Yuha, the way Yuha is. Like maybe that's the reason he made his selection, because remember when he made his selection to steal the powers from the Quincy's, he selected Katagiri, which we know is a half-blood Quincy, and he selected Masaki, who at that time would have already been around with Ishin, so maybe that's why he selected those two, and probably more, half-blood, or maybe more polluted Quincy's, because he knew that they just kind of forsaken their pureness. It's interesting, but I think that's the reason he didn't refer to Ryukin. And I really hope Ryukin does show back up, because clearly they're going to go someone with this. I mean, like I said, you can't really have a Quincy arc without referring to Uryu, and that's why we were so annoyed for so long that he didn't show up. And, of course, it's the same thing with Ryukin. You have to have something with Ryukin in there. It can't be just something minor. It can't just be, Ryukin showing up, fighting, and getting killed or something. It has to be some important plot point involving Ryukin, because we heard the past story from Ishin's perspective, but now I'd really like to hear, Ryukin's thoughts on the matter, or Ryukin going off, like talking about Katagiri in more detail or everything, or, maybe something going along with Uryu's birth. Maybe that included something interesting, because Ishin would clearly not know everything about it. We would have to know about Ryukin. But Ryukin's always been one of my favorite characters, and I was always upset. To this day, I've always been upset that in the fake Karakura Town arc, when Aizen walks into fake Karakura and he starts chasing around Tatsuki and Keigo and all of Ichigo's friends, and freaking Don Kanonji shows up and everything, I'm pissed to this day. Where the fuck was Ryukin that entire time? Urahara shows up, Yoruichi shows up, Ishin shows up. Where the hell was Ryukin? Was he? You can't know. You can't just say, oh, he was asleep too. He was asleep for the rest of the town. That makes no sense for two reasons. Number one, I doubt Ryukin would be, knocked out like that. And since Ishin wasn't and Urahara wasn't, I highly doubt Ryukin would be knocked out. And number two, it was shown that anybody that had any kind of spiritual energy, freaking Tatsuki and Keigo, who had about 0.0000001% spirit energy, were able to stand back up. So clearly Ryukin would be not knocked out that long. So I mean, I guess you could just say he just didn't want to get involved. Like he was just hanging out in his his mansion the entire time, just sipping some tea and just being watching the fight shit blowing up outside. Ichigo's Mugetsu in the distance, and he's just Earl Grey is just fantastic in the afternoon. Alright, let me just read this book. I mean, that sounds kind of what he would do, because he wouldn't want to get involved in matters involving Shinigami. But once again, dude, the entire town could literally... Everyone could die here, You don't want to show up and fight. That was one of my favorite moments where I was actually very disappointed by a spoiler alert. I remember I read a spoiler. Remember the same time when, right before Don Kanonji showed up in the chapter before, we just had that shadowy figure, like a shadow appears. That so many chapters in Bleach end like that, where just it's a foot. And everyone thought that was Ryukin, and I'm just, please, for the love of God, please be Ryukin. And I read a spoiler, and it said it was Ryukin, and I got really excited, because it was going to be an Aizen versus Ryukin fight, and then Ishin shows up later and everything, and that's not how it ended up, and I was just pissed about that. So, it's gonna happen with Ryukin. Something's definitely gonna happen. Alright, 5 war powers. We haven't really had a huge development in terms of the 5 war powers. I assume that Ryu would have been one because of the fact that he's one of the few Quincy's in the world, but now that he's a member of the Vandenreich itself, I'm not really sure how the 5 war powers or potentials work, if Yuha considers himself a war potential, or if it's just the 5 war potentials that the opposing side has going for them. These are the 5 people that have the potential to defeat the Vandenreich, or have the potential to cause a problem for the Vandenreich. Or if it's just the 5 people in the war in general, including the Vandenreich, that, are the major players. So he considered Kenpachi one. And some people say he didn't consider him one, that was a translation error, but considering the fact he now knows his Shikai and everything, and I'm going to get to that in a second with the Zanpakuto releases, but considering that now, he would definitely be considered a war potential. Ichigo is definitely considered one. Aizen was offered to become one, so that's another thing too that I don't get. He's here are the 5 war potentials, but Aizen declines, so... Does that mean there was going to be 6, or if there was 5 already established and he was just looking and Aizen, he considered Aizen one, but when he asked him to join, he declined. So now is there only 4 or there's still 5? Not sure. And I don't know if if Yuha considers himself a war potential. I don't know if we're going to get into that. We actually haven't really I don't think anyone's even really mentioned that since the last video. I don't really think anyone's really gone into that much. But anyway, Zanpakuto releases, most notably Kenpachi's, of course, which I'm going to tell you guys right now, and you guys might be upset about this, but we are not going to learn Kenpachi's name of his Zanpakuto until the next invasion starts, which could be, for all intents and purposes, quite a while. We still don't know yet. We're still kind of in the training area with Ichigo in the Royal Palace and everything, but I don't see Kenpachi even showing up again. Well, I could see him potentially showing up, but I don't see him using his Zanpakuto's true power until he's fighting against a Stern Ritter, and even then a very strong Stern Ritter that he gets beaten down. He doesn't seem like the type to immediately go into Shikai just because he has the power. He's always been a melee fighter. He's always been that's the way he's been fighting for hundreds of years. So he's not going to change it around just because he gained a power first. He's going to fight the way he normally does, and then if he starts getting beaten down, he's like, okay, I guess I finally got to use this power that I got, this amazing power that Unohana gave to me with her dying breath. So, okay, so as for Kenpachi's actual abilities, what they can be, I have to throw fan fiction out the window here, because if you read any fan fiction involving Kenpachi's Bankai, it's basically like a hydrogen bomb inside of his sword. Like, he has the power to basically channel Satan into the physical world and basically butt-fuck anything that, or anyone that even comes within a 5-mile radius of him. That's essentially the logic in the fandom of what his Bankai is going to be. Well, we don't even know if he has his Bankai yet, but as for his Shikai abilities, because remember, we've always known that he's had a Shikai. Like, that sword he's had, always been a Shikai. His power's just been so overly strong, it's just been forced into release. But because he didn't know his name, because he didn't have a dialogue, he couldn't access any of his abilities or any of his powers. But now that he's, you know, gone back to his roots, which the same as every other character, you've noticed a lot of them are going back to their roots in this recent, in a couple of chapters. Like, Kenpachi had to go back to how he fought originally as a child. You know, Toshiro and Sajin are going back to the roots. Ichigo had to go learn about his past. So we might actually continue this little mini arc of just going back to the past for a lot of the characters. But as for Kenpachi, now that he knows the name, I've always believed that his powers stem with some kind of spatial or dimensional powers. The only real basis I had for that is two things. Number one, we've never really seen a Zanpakuto that could do that. And number two, I know this is not canon. I know that this is just the basis for this doesn't make any sense. But there was a Bleach game. It was actually the first Bleach game I ever played. It was Bleach Shattered Blade for the Nintendo Wii. And in that game, it wasn't expressly stated it had dimensional powers, but every time you swing his sword, it basically rips the dimensions, kind of warps them and distorts them, and that causes damage to your opponent. So that was never really a basis for his power, but I always thought, you know what, that actually kind of makes sense, because I don't think his power is going to be anything Keto-based, because even if it was Keto-based, he has no talent in Keto to begin with, so, you know, unless he goes and tries to learn Keto, which Kenpachi would never do, I don't think it's going to be Keto-based. I think it's going to be a more straightforward melee-type ability, but it's going to be insanely strong. I don't think it's going to be like a nuke, like everything in a 10-mile radius instantly dies, but I think it's certainly going to be something very powerful, and it's going to be something that would heighten his already strong ability. Like his strengths are physical power, and his massive amount of spiritual power. It's going to take advantage of that. But as for anything beyond that, or the dimensional thing, just because we haven't seen a Zanpakuto use that ability, that's all I got so far. Next up is, okay, Zero Squad. Let's talk about the Zero Squad for a minute here. Alright, so, Zero Squad, we've, ever since the last video, we've seen them being revealed, and we have now this little section where we have Ichigo and Renji traveling across the different palaces to achieve their powers, and it was funny because the first two palaces took maybe 2 or 3 chapters. I think Kirio's took 1 chapter, and we get to Nemaya's, which took they got there in chapter 523, so it's 20 chapters even since we started there. That's 5 months roughly of manga chapters. 5 months, and they've been in the same palace, or they've been in the same section of that palace, going back, Ichigo had to travel back and forth between that. So, now that he's achieved his true Zangetsu, and I'll have a completely different topic on that, but now that he's achieved his true Zangetsu, I could see him, sticking around a little bit, so maybe Nemaya can tell him anything important he needs to know about his new Zanpakuto, but I think in the next couple of chapters he's going to be heading on to the next palace. The next palace in question, I think, is going to be, oh man, what was her name? Spider Lady, the weaving master, the one with the arms. I'm going to look this up, but, yeah, I'm thinking it's going to be her. because the black guy Bonds, or I think his name was Bonds, I don't see, he kind of seems like the leader of the Zero Squad to me. I mean, they stated there's no captain of the Zero Squad, but I like they're all captains, but I certainly think that he's going to be like the leader of the final one they're going to show up to. Shutara, that was it, Senjumara Shutara. So I don't know what her ability is going to be. Exactly what she created. It's something involving weaving, so maybe it's something involving spirit ribbons in some way, because that's the only thing that really jumps to me when she says a guardian of weaving, and you have, like, you know, like any kind of cloth would be spirit ribbons. Maybe she had something to do with the way Shinigami used the Ryatsu, or Kido, maybe, in a sense. It stated that she had some affiliation to the 12th Squad at one point, which Kiryu did as well, so the only thing I can imagine there is it went Shutara, then Kiryu, Uehara, then Mayuri. I can see how that works. Or maybe she just, she said at her time when she was at the 12th Division, or did she just say at her time when she was a member of the Goatee? Either way, she probably has some connection to the division. So maybe I mean, one of these people had to create Kido. One of these people had to have something to do with Kido. What I'm thinking with Bonds, or Osho, his other name is, that maybe he had something to do with the creation of, people thought Bonkai, but then I'm thinking, no, it wouldn't be Bonkai, because that seems something like more Nimaya would be into, because then again, we never really saw Nimaya mention anything involving about Bonkai. It's always been just about, like, the Asachi and creating a sword. So maybe Bonds had something to do with Bonkai, but one of those last two had to have something to do with Kido. I'm fairly certain on that. And also, something else interesting about the Zero Squad that I've been noticing, and I just didn't notice it until fairly recently, was Ichigo. They're kind of conditioning Ichigo to become Zero Squad level, or they're like, he's becoming up to their level. Because let's think about this, like, we had, like, every time he visits a palace and, you know, whatever Zero Squad member does their thing, what they have to do, there's always been some mention of Ichigo being way stronger than an average captain, and maybe being worthy of being a member of the Zero Division. Because the first when we went to the healing spring with Tenjiro Korinji, and we had that big deal with, you know, you can't be in this healing water for long or you'll damage your body. And Ichigo was in there just fine, perfectly nude, and he got out and he was just fine. So Korinji's just like, that's crazy that he was able to do that. Then we go into the next palace, which is Kiryu's, and they both eat the food and they gain, like, super Ryatsu, or they gain, like, a major boost in the Ryatsu, so that's a thing. We go to Nimaya's palace, which Nimaya's, like, astounded, like, oh my god, I can't believe, you know, like, your sword is so odd, because, you know, it took out all this water at once. It's just so odd, you know, and plus he's a dual-bladed, which only, like, 3 Shinigami have that power, so, yeah. Oh, by the way, perfect example, if you ever wonder why Kubo doesn't ever play, there's always been a big, big controversy if, like, Kubo plans stuff out, like, he's like a genius, like, he plans stuff out years in advance before it's actually shown up, and then whenever it shows up, it's like, oh man, he planned that out, like, years in advance. He's such a good guy, he's such a great guy with that, he's such a great mangaka. I'm not gonna, like, complain about Kubo or anything here, I'm just saying, a good example of saying he doesn't plan things out is when, you know, Yamamoto says, oh, these are the only two dual-bladed Zanpakutos in existence. It's Kyoraku and it's Ukitake. And then, like, 200 chapters later, we get Shuhei's, which is Kazeshini, which is also 2 blades. And I know a lot of you are probably going to respond to that by saying, oh, well, he actually didn't mean those because they weren't really swords, or they were connected by a chain, so they're not really dual-wield, despite the fact that Ukitake's also are connected by a chain. So, he didn't plan that out. It's a plot hole. Deal with it. Just deal with it. I know somebody out there in internet land's going to come up with something like, oh no, Kubo really did plan it. He just didn't mention it in the fight against Choraku and Ukitake because insert very vague reason here. So, just saying that. So, you know, Ichigo has dual wield now. So that's certainly very unique among Soul Reapers. So yeah, certainly he's getting up in Zero Squad level. And if Ichigo does learn Kido, like I said, like one of them probably has something to do with Kido, damn, just damn. Because it's something like, Ichigo, I have to say, you have, like, okay, you access Shinigami powers, okay, and you have this great power. If I had that power, I would want to learn as much about it as possible. I would, like, go to the Soul Society and talk to the elders of the Soul Society, talk to the people, be like, it's like, hey, I'm a Soul Reaper now! you know, what can I do? Can I try to learn this keto stuff? Can someone train me in the art of Zangetsu? Can I learn how to use my flash step a little bit better? Can I learn how to, you know, I would find out about this shit. This is like a whole other set of existence that you've never even touched upon your whole life. I would learn how to like learn keto and like the basics of like control of your reishi and everything. Like this is stuff I would do. I would not just like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go back home now and just fight some hollows with my sword, and you know, if I need you, I'll call. Like I would learn stuff about this. All right, next. That's pretty much just everything I covered in the last video. The other stuff is just stuff that I just thought of in this video. Next, this mostly pertains to the Stern Ritters. First up is the Stern Ritters D and Yajimu, or Yajimua, I forget his name exactly. You know, the guy in the last chapter that had the staff and the eye. First off, a lot of people were saying that Stern Ritter D, Askin, was the one that fought against Ukitake, which I didn't really think about that, but if you actually look at the back of their heads, the hairstyle's similar, so I'm thinking, okay, maybe that's the one that's fought. So I'll go with that. And also the other thing was, Yajimu might have been the Stern Ritter that fought against, well, he didn't fight against anybody, but he controlled Jidombo, and he was the one that led the assault on the 12th Division. That makes sense given the fact that like their giggles, like their laughter sounded very similar. To be honest with you, when that person first appeared, that puppeteer Quincy first appeared, I didn't really notice the giggle. I didn't notice he said anything. I thought he just showed up and he was really silent, and I just imagined like a jester or somebody. Considering the fact we didn't see this guy's like we didn't see what his shoes looked like or anything, then there's no 100% comparison. But considering the laughter was the same, and the fact that he had his eye on him maybe represents some kind of like physical control. Like if you look into the eye, you'll be manipulated by him, and maybe that's why Askin, like maybe that's why Basby was so like, you know, he was about to jump into battle with Hashwald, despite the fact that Basby should certainly know that if they were to fight in the Vandenreich HQ, how Juha would show up and like blow their freaking heads off right there. So yeah, I'm thinking maybe that's that might be a relationship there. Speaking of Yuha, some people were wondering, me included, that the fact of Yuha having a successor is a little bit odd, considering the fact that Yuha is supposed to be immortal. I mean, he was defeated 1,000 years ago, but he came back, so clearly he is some kind of immortal. Maybe this implies that Yuha is going to die, or maybe he has to die to do something. Maybe whatever his grand plan for the Soul Society is, maybe that includes him dying at some point, because of course this is something that you just can't look over. You know, Yuha appointing a successor, that would imply that at one point Yuha would either do two things. He would either die, or he would ascend to a higher level, kind of like Fire Lord Ozai in Avatar, where he was Fire Lord, and then he basically gained the power of Sozin's Comet, and he's like, I'm now the Phoenix King, so he appoints another Fire Lord as his successor. So maybe he goes like to a higher level beyond that, or he could just die. Maybe that's like something he wants to do. Maybe to end the existence of all Shinigami, he needs to die himself, because Quincy's are the opposite of Shinigami, and one can't exist without the other, and maybe that has to do with something. I don't know. That's the only thoughts I have on that. Okay, true Zangetsu. Let's discuss this a little bit. First things first, couple things just to clear out. The dual wield that we saw in the recent chapter, that is most likely Ichigo's Shikai. I do not think he's going to need to relearn Bankai. I think he already's gained that, and I think we've already had a story arc involving that when he had to relearn Bankai. I would think it would just kind of diminish everything if he had to learn it all over again, so I don't think he needs to relearn Bankai. Same reason he didn't have to relearn it when he got his powers back from Ginjo. His powers, I think he's going to have access to more abilities now. I think he's going to have full access to his Hollow abilities now, because his Hollow should be more tamed now that it was, he made his Zanpakuto through an Asachi, so I think that should be more okay. I think he should have full access over his Quincy powers. Some people are saying like the swords are supposed to fit together and they'll make a bow, which at first I was looking at and I'm thinking, yeah, maybe, but now that I'm starting to think like he has Quincy powers, and Quincy powers are most well expressed through a bow or some kind of, you know, long-range weapon, I can totally see that happening, like him like doing that. But yeah, I think he's going to have better control over his Hollow now. He's going to have more access to his abilities, and just insanely power boost to begin with. But at the same time, I don't think he could activate Final Getsuga again. I just don't see Kubo ever doing that again now, because he did it once. I mean, I don't see like, oh, final battle with Yuha, Final Getsuga, okay. problem solved, we're done, end of series. I don't see him doing that again, like the whole losing power thing. I really just think that was a one and done type deal there. Also going on with Zanpakutos that were given by Nimaya, we have Renji. Yeah, Renji, he kind of passed the test with the Asachi, but then, what, he just kind of disappeared? I don't know what Nimaya did there, because Nimaya stated the only Shinigami that's ever gotten a Zanpakuto without an Asachi was Ichigo. So Renji clearly did, the first time he got Zabimaru, he used his regular, Asachi, and he gained it the same way every other Shinigami does. So I don't know why, doing it again would gain a power boost, or maybe, it was because Renji needed to learn the true meaning of an Asachi this time, aside from just having it. So maybe... certainly Renji's Zanpakuto's changed too, and I think the next time we're going to see it, I think either Nimaya sent him to the next palace, and maybe Ichigo, when Ichigo goes to the next palace, he's going to see Renji there, and he's like, oh, hey man, what's going on? Yeah, I was just talking to this, this Shutara chick about, learning Kido, or that would actually work for Renji, because he sucks at Kido. So, maybe Renji is, I don't think he got, sent back to the Soul Side. I think he's still in the palaces somewhere, maybe in the next one, or the next after that. So, yeah, his Zanpakuto has definitely changed, by the way. As for the Soul King, damn, what to do about him? I don't know. I mean, there's probably going to be a thing where after they visit the 5 palaces, they'll be invited into the court of the Soul King, and the Soul King, the way he looks, is just some kind of omnipotent being, some kind of like the closest thing to a god in the Bleach universe, I would assume. So maybe when Ichigo goes before him, maybe the Soul King will have like some kind of big, huge revelation about him. Like, the whole reason you were like, maybe like the Soul King is like, I knew this would happen. Like, I knew this whole thing with Yuha was going to happen. I knew the Soul Society was going to be that it would be ripped asunder. So that's why I'm the one that made your birth possible. Like, I'm the one that like made all these events fit together so that you would be born and you would be our savior. Something like that. Some people are thinking like Ichigo's going to be the Soul King, like when the series is over he's going to transcend and become Soul King. I don't see that happening. The most I can see happening at the end of the story, by the way, that's the next thing I'm talking about, end of the series, and my thoughts on that. I can see, at most I can see him becoming a captain. And that is only with a time skip involved. I don't see him like at the end of the series, he's still like 17 years old, and he's like, oh, Ichigo, you're now appointed honorary captain, something like that. I could see at the end of the series him like doing like a time skip to the future after everything is said and done, after the enemy has been defeated, time skip to the future, and he turns out to be a captain, or vice versa. Maybe he's a normal human now, and he's still a Shinigami, but he's just living with his family, which could include Orihime, and he'll have a daughter or a son or something, and the daughter will see a spirit, and that's how the series will end, with like Bleach 2 or some shit. As for the final battle itself, couple of things here. We have the fact that Yuha might not actually be the main villain. And I know that's kind of contradictory to everything we've been seeing, but there are hints out there that imply that maybe Yuha is not the main villain. The successor thing is one. Hashwolf is a huge one. The fact that Hashwolf is basically a big sobbing ball of freaking mystery at the moment, because we don't know anything about this dude. He's the only Quincy, only Stern Ritter that Yuha can talk to as an equal, treats as a normal subordinate. Maybe that's because there's something about Hashwolf that's special. I said that maybe he was the leader of the Stern Ritters between the time that Yuha was being revived, and he's the one that taught Yuha, like, regained his intelligence and everything. Maybe the fact that he's actually the real leader of everything, and maybe Yuha is just maybe under Hashwolf's control or something. That could be a huge thing. The fact that he the fact that he's so strong, he could break Ichigo's Bankai with just like a sword swing. I think there's something huge that's going to go on with him. The fact also that Basby declared him as the next... Askin declared him as the next king. There's going to be something huge with this guy. There's going to be a huge freaking revelation. We're all going to be taken by surprise by it. I have no idea what it's going to be, but it's going to be big, and it's going to happen. I don't know fairly certain, but it's going to happen, and I'm looking forward to that chapter when it does happen. I know that Kubo's not just going to write this guy off. He's also the one that actually showed, like the full... He appeared on the title of Chapter 480 as like the major players of this arc. So he's definitely going to show up, and it's definitely going to be some huge, big revelation. The last thing I caught up with as the true enemy, I don't think this is going to happen, but it could be Uryu. It could be like I know everyone thinks that, oh, he's just joining the Vandenreich to be a double agent. He's actually on the good side. it might be the case where he might be the true bad guy in the entire series. It might be like, oh man, Uryu, you're really bad. Maybe because, maybe Yuha either brainwashed him, or the truth behind Katagiri is a little bit more darker than what we've been told by Isshin. Maybe he is the true villain, but I really do not see that happening. I just put that down there as a possibility, no matter how small. Final thing I'm going to discuss is this. This is something that I came up with myself, but it's something that actually makes a lot of sense when I actually think about it. At the end, okay, let's just assume that Yuha is the main enemy. All right, he might not be, but let's just assume at the moment Yuha is the main enemy of this arc, and everything we've learned about him is true. The whole thing about him being, God of the Quincy's, creator of the Quincy's, all that stuff, that is true. If he is the main villain, that would imply that by the end of the series, Ichigo would have to kill him. Or because, I say Ichigo because there's no way that you're going to end the series of Bleach with anybody but Ichigo defeating the main enemy. It's going to be Ichigo. It just has to be. I mean, maybe somebody else would help him. Definitely has to be Ichigo included. It just freaking has to be. It's law of anime, like number 2. Number 1, of course, being that physics do not apply. So, wouldn't that imply that if Yuha were to die, all the Quincy powers would just go gone? That's an idea, considering the fact like he's the creator of all the Quincy's, and you might be thinking, well, he died before, but he died before, but he wasn't really dead. He was going to be reincarnated after 1,000 years. So that's an idea I have. Like, if Ichigo does in fact destroy him, the Quincy powers inside of Ichigo, Zangetsu, which is a representation of Yuha's abilities, as well as, Uryu, Ryukin, every other Quincy's, their powers would just go away and just disappear. Maybe they were like, our powers were a curse to begin with, or we clung to crosses so dearly, but really our powers were so unholy. That's actually, damn, that's actually really clever. That's actually like some really poetic shit that Kubo would do. Like, we clung to holy artifacts, but really our powers were the thing of the damned, something like that. That's just a little thing I came up with because it makes sense if Yuha is the Christ figure of the Quincy's and he were to die, all the Quincy powers would disappear. Alright, so those are my thoughts on everything I came up with. Just as like the arc so far and where we've been coming. What are your guys' thoughts? What do you think about where the arc is going, or what do you think we're going to get in like major revelation in the next chapters or by the end of Bleach? How do you think Bleach is going to end? That's a good question. But I don't think we're near the end yet. I think we got another couple years, maybe like 2 or 3 years in Bleach before the series ends, or maybe before it even like starts to wind down. Because right now we're still kind of like in training, and I think it's going to be a while before we even get a second invasion. And who's to say the second invasion is going to be the last invasion? We might have, this invasion of the world of the living. We might even freaking go back to Hueco Mundo at some point. We don't freaking know. Well, we gotta go back to Hueco Mundo at some point because of Grimmjow. Yeah, Grimmjow! Freaking Grimmjow! I forgot to write him down, damn it! It's annoying because this is like a year after the freaking chapter 500 where we saw like the sword guy. We still haven't gotten a freaking update on that. We got one little scene. Where it was pretty much confirmed it was Grimmjow, but we still don't know 100%. We've still never seen his face. The fuck, it's been a year. Kubo. Damn it. Alright. I gotta end this, because now I'm mad at life. Okay, everyone, thanks for watching the video. Thoughts below. Thanks, everybody. Tekking101 signing out. It's been a fun year.